Okay. All right. Welcome to the Bikini Things podcast, where we talk everything from fitness and competing to mental health and living a healthy lifestyle. I'm your host, IFBB Pro, Laura Morche, here with my co-host, IFBB Bikini Pro, Sammy Joe. And then we also have a special guest today that we're super excited about. So welcome, IFBB Bikini Pro, Kiki Cunningham. How are you, Kiki?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Hello, doing
I'm great.
great. Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday.
Yeah. We're super excited to have you, Kiki. I think was the last time we were all together. Was that at Nashville?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay, cool. So yeah, so
that
for
was
some
such a fun time.
it really was. So for the context, Sammy, Kiki both competed in the Nashville Fit Show back in August. I was there with some of my NPC competitors and to hang out, be a IFBB fangirl for a weekend. And we all got to hang out, have dinner, go out together in Nashville afterwards, which was like so fun. It was really, really cool.
Yeah.
I think that's one of my favorite parts of, being a pro. Obviously, we have big goals of, going to the Olympia, placing very well. But honestly, like I feel like it's just such a different like atmosphere at the pro level. It's just like those weekends are more of just like girl weekends. It's like, oh, we get to go see our friends and we just happen to be stepping on stage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
And
I
I
agree
think
completely.
for me, that weekend was like super cool and super special because typically, like, I travel with my husband. So post show, it's usually just him and I. So that was the first time that I actually, like, post show went out with the girls. Like, we all hung out. Like, yeah, my husband was still there, but like, he was in the background. So it was like the girls got to hang out. We got to eat dinner together. So it felt more, I don't know, like a team, right? Even though we're all on different teams. But like just in the sense of like everybody hanging out. So that was super cool. That was like definitely something I'd never experienced before. So it was awesome and definitely a great group of people to do it with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Nashville is a great time. And I think probably all of us, I don't want to speak for you too, but I feel like all of us are probably at this point where we've been competing for a minute. A lot of our close friends become our fellow bikini pros, right? Because our life
Yeah.
gets so devoted to this sport. And those are the people we end up spending time with or seeing at shows or competing with and relating to really well.
Yeah, I definitely believe that full
Yeah.
force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
you
it's
went to
nice.
oh,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Sammy. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say,
Okay.
Kiki, you went to Pittsburgh recently, right? With your coach and Tamikia, right? How was that?
Yeah, that was really cool. I mean, Ben was doing his road to the Olympia, and I'm within driving distance to Pittsburgh. So I'm like, well, if you need like a second hand or just want someone with you, like I'm happy to come up there. And the last time I was at headquarters was my pro debut back in 2021. And since then, they've moved locations. They have everything under one roof now. And it was just really cool to kind of just like see the people, that are in
Mhm.
charge of the league.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
awesome.
So
What all
cool.
did they
So,
do at those like meetups?
Yeah, so the road to the Olympia, they get to work out in the NPC gym, which has amazing equipment. I was I was so jealous because I'm like, oh, I just want to work out right now, but my job was being the camera girl for Ben. So they do a workout, they take photos, and then they do an interview with JM, and then Tyler is there. And sometimes some other judges are there, like Bill Sibilia was there, and Gary Udet, and they were just watching Ben go through his posing routine and giving him feedback, going into the Olympia, what he needs to do, and things like that.
So awesome.
yeah, super cool. So, again, we're so excited to have you, Kiki. So I want to like take a step back and go through a little bit of what got you going competing. I know you've been doing it for a long time, so I'd love to go back and kind of revisit like what for you, what was the thing that really inspired you to start competing? And maybe you can speak a little bit to the early parts of your journey, because I think a lot of NPC competitors, they look at us and just think we've been this way forever, or like, we never had a starting point. And so if you can maybe like paint a picture for us, like what was that like for you?
Yeah, so I was a college cheerleader. I never stepped in the gym. I think we maybe did like a couple of like stupid workouts where that we would like train arms or something, but was never in a gym. I was just cheering clear up until college. And then when I, you know, graduated, I was like, okay, what can I do? I need something to stay active and have that competitive mindset. I moved to Chicago after I finished my undergrad degree and ended up living like a block away from a gym, and started working with a trainer there that we got like free personal training sessions. And I ended up working at that gym as well as a sales consultant selling gym memberships. And I fell in love with training. I was like really good at my sales job. So I would finish all of my sales calls, hit my numbers. And then I was like, okay, like what else do I do with my time sitting at my desk? And the only website that we were able to get on without like the company's firewall was bodybuilding.com. So I would read every single article that was ever posted. And I honestly just fell in love with the training side. I ended up then going back to grad school to get my MBA and my master's in sports administration. I thought I wanted to work in like professional sports. I worked for the Cowboys prior to going to grad school. And um, you know, it just kind of like hit me. I'm like, I love training. I love nutrition. I love all this stuff. I would do like weird experiments on myself, like the bodybuilding.com. They would have like diet plans to go along with a certain training. And I was like, well, I'm just going to do this. So I would literally just be a science experiment on myself and run these like 30-day programs and just see what kind of happened. And then, you know, that was kind of like the early parts of Instagram too, where, you know, I just started like seeing some of like the OG competitors. And I was like, wow, this looks really cool. Like, you can train and, you know, have a diet plan, and then you get to like step on stage, like looking like a goddess. Like, I'm in. And so when I was finishing up my MBA, I was looking for, you know, coaches where I was going to be moving to. And my very like first coach, I don't really want to call him a coach. I knew nothing about the sport of bodybuilding. So I just found someone who was in the city that I was going to be moving to. And I was like, oh, he looks like he knows what he's doing. And so I hired him. I ended up losing like 30 pounds in like 6 weeks
Oh, gee.
at my last semester of grad school. So I was trying to finish up my grad degree, and I was basically starving myself.
Oh my gosh.
But I was like, I didn't know any better. And none of my classmates, after the fact, they told me how concerned they were, but they didn't want to like be the person to be like, Kiki, you need to stop doing this. Like, I remember working the Super Bowl, and I was eating like tuna out of a bag for, you know, 5, 6 meals a day. And that was all I was eating and trying to, you
Oh,
know,
geez.
do my job. So I didn't really know any better. And then when I was ending up like going to be moving to Jacksonville, I was like, all right, I'm ready to prep. Like, there's a show in Jacksonville, the Dexter Jackson Classic. Like, I think this would be a good one for me to do because it's local. And he sent me an updated, you know, meal plan, which was even less calories than what I was already consuming. So it was like probably 800 calories. And he was like, okay, we're going to need to build into this show. I was like, okay, cool. But why are we having less food right now? Like, can you explain? And his response was, um, well, you know, all of my clients just do what I say and don't really ask questions and get the results that they want.
Oh my
And
god.
then I was like, oh shit. Nope, nope, nope. Something's not right here. So I ended up
Like,
finding,
red
you know,
flag.
a different coach, because I was like, I don't know any better, but like I knew that something wasn't right. Like, I should not look like this, and I should not be building quote unquote into a show eating 800 calories when I graduated. Like, this was like April, and the show wasn't until July. So ended up finding a new coach, thank goodness. And then did my first show in 2017.
Mhm.
So
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah,
Real quick,
that's
can you guys see me?
I can see you, Sammy. It does. You do look a little bit like blurry, but if usually the software fixes that.
I got a notification that was like your camera's not working, and then on my end it's super choppy.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's like
yeah, you look choppy, but I can see you. Let me look at your info real quick.
sorry.
You're fine. I think everything is okay. Yeah. It shows your cam link and everything. So I think you're okay right now, Sammy.
Okay.
If something seems weird, I will bring it up. But yeah, that's a definitely a crazy experience, Kiki. But I also at the same time I relate to you so much. Our timing, it's so funny because like our timing with so many things actually really lines up. Like I was also kind of getting interested in bodybuilding around, I don't know, like the early days of Instagram, like what was that, like 2011, 2012, 2013, kind of like that time frame. I was in grad school at that time. I was just learning how to like really weight lift back then. I was on my own little, fitness journey to go from being skinny fat to just being like skinny with a little bit of muscle at that time. And then my first show was also 2017. I also had the experience of being that person eating less than 1,000 calories a day for probably at least a month before my first show. So a lot of us have been there. So when you found that new coach, then what did you do from there? What did your trajectory towards earning your pro card look like?
yeah, so I started working with Casey Marshall, and that was my, first official coach, I want to call her,
Yeah.
going into my first show. And honestly, after that first show, I mean, I got the bikini bug bit. Like, it was full force. I was like, I'm doing this forever. I just loved the experience. It was a team show, so there was a bunch of girls. I met my best friend Lacey Smith at that show. She kind of took me underneath her wing. We're still like best friends now.
I love that.
But then since I was so small, I'm naturally petite anyways. But I mean, I was probably 100 pounds on stage. I had I had no muscle. So she was like, all right, you have to go into an improvement season. And I was like, wait, what does that mean? Like, I had no idea.
Mhm.
I was like, I don't want to stop like competing. So like, how can I, get involved and all this stuff? And she was just starting her brand and her new coaching team. And, I just volunteered to help her because I was an in-person trainer at that point. And I was like, well, if you need any help, like I have my MBA, I have my master's of sports administration, let me help you. So I helped like build her website and, send out welcome packages to the girls. And so I was still able to like be involved through that improvement season. And it kind of helps, that's definitely one thing I encourage, new competitors, just because you are not like in prep for a show, you can still get involved and, go to posing seminars, connect with other, people around you. So it doesn't feel so lonely.
Yeah.
And then 2018 was season number 2. I ended up doing 2 national shows that year. Looking back, I didn't need to do them because I still needed muscle. But it was just it was a fun experience. I needed to get back on stage again. Again, at that point, I also didn't know what I know now about, taking quality time off. And then, so I did 2 national shows that year, went into another improvement season and building season, and I did the Arnold Amateur in 2019. That was my first like big show where I like actually started to look like a bikini competitor. That was in end of February 2019. And at that time before, the world shut down the year afterwards. That was when the finals for the Arnold Amateur was on Saturday on the big stage in the expo.
Oh wow.
And if you had to get like top 10 to get to finals. And it was a much bigger show back then. Like, I think there was probably 25, 30 girls in my class. So I made top 10, got to step on like the big expo stage. And I remember like that moment of looking out into the crowd, and I was like, I need to go pro. Like this, it was just that spark inside me. So once I stepped off stage, then I took all the rest of 2019 off, and just build. I trained, I ate, and basically every single decision that I made, like every day, was getting me closer and closer to like to get to a pro card level status. So the beginning of 2020, I started my competition prep for, obviously we were going to do a warm-up show, qualifying show, in April, and then we were going to hit the ground running starting in May with Junior USA's, Junior Nats, and then the world shut down, and we just kept prepping. We prepped through that entire time because we didn't know when the shows were going to come back, but we just wanted to be ready. So we just kept prepping, and I ended up doing the Tampa Pro as my, the NPC Tampa Extravaganza, I think is what they called it. That was my qualifying show. Ended up taking first in my class, and then we went on the run of national shows, whichever ones they were. I think the first one was like Junior USA's in September, and then like 4 days after that was
they
North
managed to like
American.
jam them all, like all 6 of them or whatever, into like the last like couple months of the year that year. It was nuts.
Yeah, did the North Americans under the tent.
Oh my
That
gosh.
was an experience. So I was top 5 in all of the national shows that year, with Junior USA's, going into North Americans. And then there was a little bit of break before NPC Universe back in Charleston. And that was a week before NPC Nationals in Orlando. So I got top 5 on all 3 of those. And then NPC Nationals 2020 in Orlando was where I got my pro card. So
Amazing.
yeah,
Amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So our time, it's so funny. Our timing is like, because I'm trying to remember, did we meet at our pro debut? Is that the show that we met at?
I think so.
Was
Was
it
it the
Patriots for you?
No, I did the Pittsburgh Pro in 2021
Okay.
was my
Okay.
pro debut.
Okay. Did you do Patriots that year, or am I just imagining that?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
think we met
Okay.
at, gosh, I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't
we
remember.
would have met it. We would have met at some shows, I think, in 2021 when we were both pros. But yeah, very similar to you as well, Kiki. Like my timeline got completely distorted. 2019, I was one place from a pro card at USA's, and I was like very down. And then I got to this point where I'm like, why are you not even trying? Like the girls that beat you are pro now. Like get it together. And so I did USA's and I won it at the NPC USA's in December that year.
Oh, that was a
So
fun show. That was the
yeah.
first show that I was like went to as a pro. And so
Uh-huh.
that was just like super cool to like,
Yeah.
wear the pro
Yeah,
jacket.
get the jacket, and yeah, it was a definitely a different experience and all that. Like checking in, remember checking in with Kim Oda, where we're literally like 30 feet apart because he had COVID, and so he's in his
Oh my
hotel
gosh,
room.
I remember that.
Yeah, and he had his his KN95 mask or whatever, and he's 25 feet away. I'm outside. It's December in Arizona, and it's like freezing, and you have no body fat, and you're like doing your posing routine outside, like. All right, what should I eat now? What do I do? So it was fun times.
What would you say? So I know you said, I think it was 2017, 2018, those off seasons, the switch really flipped at the Arnold for you. How would you say those off seasons differed from prior to going to the Arnold to after the Arnold, getting ready for your pro, like the run for pro card?
Not a lot changed. I mean, I'm very much a follow the plan type of person. We just needed to grow and to eat. So I call it the linebacker diet. I was eating so much food after, like, in all of my improvement seasons. I was tracking macros. I would literally like be so neurotic and track. Like, I'm a big donut person. I would literally like get donuts every weekend and I would like weigh them. I would find a matching, thing on my Fitness Pal that had the grams and the ounces. Like, I was on track, 1000% throughout all of my improvement seasons. Do I think people need to be that crazy? No, but it did teach me a lot about, what certain foods are. And it helps, if some girls need to have like certain things tracked, I know how to do that. But I think
Yeah.
after the Arnold, it was really just, I was so laser focused on, I feel like I'm close in terms of, where my muscle is at, that I can, turn pro in 2020. So every single decision, in the gym with my macros, was getting me closer to that 2020 pro card win.
Love that. I'm
That's
not gonna look at a donut the same way again.
I know,
For
right?
sure.
I'm like, do I
Yeah.
weigh my,
I'm like,
not
I'm
that
gonna,
I'm
I'm
eating
gonna start
donuts
weighing
right
my
now, but
donuts.
I'm like, shit, I'm gonna
I'm
weigh
like,
my
well,
donuts in
Kiki
my
would
off
weigh a
season.
donut. So
It
just out
so
of
now I can look at a donut right now and know, like, have a very, very, very good guess of
yeah,
what
that's
it
amazing.
is.
Yeah. Um, just out of curiosity, and then I want to talk about some of your more recent shows, because I feel like what you mentioned just now and, making choices that will lead you to your goal. I feel like you're almost in this like very parallel place now with your recent shows. But just out of curiosity, Kiki, how much, when you say linebacker diet, that cracks me up. Like, how many calories were you eating back then to grow?
So I'm 5'3". It would be, 160 plus grams of protein, 400 to 500 grams of carbs, 70 to like 100 grams of fat. Like, it was a lot of
Okay.
I'm
food.
So like over
literally drooling right now. That sounds fabulous.
It was so much. And I never got fat from it. My metabolism is just so quick. And I was training so hard, that my body was just soaking up all that food.
And if you're tracking that meticulously, it's like and that's what I think a lot of new competitors don't realize, is like there really is a science, or at a minimum there's a math equation going on between your metabolism and the macros. And if you're super on track, it's so easy for a coach to adjust you and set you at a point that's appropriate, and like increase your food gradually so you're not gaining fat in the process.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And two, you're
amazing.
still eating clean foods. It's not like you're, yeah, you might have weighed a donut as a treat once a week, but it's not like you're going to In and Out or, all these crazy fast food places and making that fit into your diet. Like, the
Yeah.
quality of the food is still high.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Just,
the trick,
we're,
Sammy, is you have to weigh your in and out,
Yes, I'm
yeah.
going to start
just
doing
like the
that.
donuts.
Well, we're athlete, I have the athlete mentality, and, I treat my business, my coaching business, myself as an athlete from my sports experience. I fuel my body. So, I don't deprive myself from, having like a donut, but I don't eat like 12 of them, and I don't do it every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which sounds like a very healthy, realistic way to approach things. So I love that. The parallel I wanted to draw, Kiki, because you mentioned you felt like every choice you were making leading up to your pro card was with that in mind, right? And I feel like now you had such a great season this year. Like, you really, I feel like, and feel free to, fill in context or disagree with me, but I feel like this year was like a really amazing year for you as a pro, that you had placings and things that you didn't have in the past. And it's like, now I almost see you as like, okay, we're now making choices to lead us like towards the Olympia. Right. So
Mhm.
I'd be curious to hear a little bit more about your experience as a pro and what you think led you to have such an amazing season this year with so many first call outs.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like I'm a very much rule follower. So regardless of who my coach is, I listen to them and I trust them. This past, so it's been about a little over a year since I started with Ben Quill Marini as my coach, and I was already in an improvement season at that point. And I think some coaches get a little bit hesitant of, pushing, weight up on some girls, especially if they need, like we need to be able to, you know, build, and I just needed more size. So he was, the first coach that really pushed me to a weight level that I didn't think I was going to be comfortable at. I was 140 pounds at the end of my improvement season this year. And I mean, I was still in pretty good shape, but he has been so meticulous about, diet, the meal timing, nutrient timing, posing, training intensity, watching form videos, just very meticulous about every single detail. And I was going through a transition period when I, started with Ben. I was going through a divorce, and honestly, having that meticulous, like, someone watching me and, following that plan, it really helped me get through, that time of my life. So me and Becken were talking about it yesterday on our podcast, and I was like, I don't even remember when I started prep this year, because I feel like I was in prep since last September, because I've just been so on my
Yeah.
shit.
So dialed in.
And it was like a good comeback year. I feel like for me, I, went into this season. I was disappointed in my season last year, because I had some, decent placings the year before. So last year when I was like dead last at all my shows, I was like, okay, something needs to change. Like I know I can do this. Like my big goal is obviously to go to the Olympia. So, I made the switch to Ben, and couldn't I couldn't be happier with how this season has gone. It was kind of just like that redemption period of, all right, I put in the work. I added the size that they wanted me to have. And we just, kept improving in between shows, which was awesome.
How would you say the transition, because this is something we've been talking about a lot on the podcast, and I feel like it's because I just went through the same thing, but I feel like I see a lot of people talking about it too, or having a hard time with transitioning to a new coach. What did that process look like for you, and how was the quote unquote, if you're comfortable sharing, like breaking up with your previous coach and like the mindset and just, kind of everything about that for you?
Yeah. So the transition was it was pretty easy. I was going through a divorce, and I also decided I was just changing everything about my life. Went through a divorce, went dark hair, and I, was stepping away from, coaching underneath a larger team, because, I wanted that financial stability for me being able to control what I wanted out of myself as a coach. And I've had I've worked with other coaching teams. I have my experience from grad school. I'm like, I can do this by myself. So it was just it was literally within like a week that all this shit happened. I left the coaching team, and that kind of made it a little bit easier to say, hey, you know what, I'm also going to be, transitioning to a different coach. And since Ben is a, current competitor, it was good to see his perspective of things and his mindset. He's actively competing. He's going to the Olympia for the third time. And just being able to learn underneath him as, me, myself as a coach, and just his mentality as an athlete, and how we, need to operate if we want to get to that next level. Probably the biggest change was, I've tracked macros my entire time of competing. And then when I started working with Ben, he's more of a flexible meal plan approach. And I was just kind of like, sure, let's do it. I know how to track macros. I'm smart with how to do that. Like if I need to make any adjustments, I can. But since life was so crazy, it honestly was really nice to just kind of being like, no, this is what you're going to eat and this is how we're going to do things. So it was kind of just like took a lot of stress off of my body and, mind. And I've loved every second of when I started with Ben.
That's amazing. Yeah, Ben is someone I'll have to ask him to be on the podcast. When he was with us in Nashville, we were talking about that. And Ben, he's someone I've known for like several years now. I met him originally through Toxic Angels and Margaret. And I remember meeting him. It was at one of the Olympias, I think, and I was working it for Toxic Angels. And I remember meeting him and I was like, dang, this guy is like very invested in these suits for like his athletes and stuff. So Ben is someone, yeah, I've known for a long time, and it's very clear when you talk to him. He definitely has a strong personality, so I can see him being amazing for holding you accountable, right, as an athlete, which is what we want, right? Kind of like that. You want that mix of like, I think a little tough love is really helpful. But it's clear that he's very detail oriented. Like at one of the past Arnolds, I remember getting into an argument with him about where the connectors of your bottoms should sit. And I was like dying laughing. And he's like, no, well, Sandy told me this. And it's like, he and I are going back, like, what, who else in terms of male coaches even knows enough about our suits to have that conversation with you. So it really speaks to that detail.
He's so detail oriented, and he's like, he wants to continue learning. Like he was asking me about like hair extensions and all this stuff. And, when he's been at shows with, me and Tamikia and Daniela, he's asking us about makeup and, like all of this stuff, because he wants to be able to make sure that, there's no stone like left unturned. It's very tough love. I don't think I could have started with him as a coach. I definitely wouldn't appreciate his coaching if I first started with him as my initial coach. And I also don't know if I would have had the tough skin that's needed to work with him. But at this point in my competing career, like I'm ready to go to the Olympia. So you can yell at me, you can be harsh. Like I know I need that, and I know it's going to push me to that next level. So now my mindset is at a place where I can, more accept that type of coaching.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point to make, and it's like understanding what type of person you are, what your needs are, and then finding that in a coach, but also being real with yourself. Like am I just trying to go easy and I just want to be coddled, so that type of personality doesn't mesh well with me, so I need someone who's going to kind of like walk, tread lightly? Or am I really ready? Am I really going to take this serious? Am I dedicated and determined enough that I need that truth, that hard, honest truth? And then I just take it as it is and accept that that's what I need as a competitor. So I think that's super important to, like, for new competitors or people, thinking about competing, like to think of when they're interviewing these coaches and deciding like who would work or who would be a best fit for them. Like it's really that honesty with yourself of like, where am I at mentally and who do I need to guide me?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's yeah, really good point, Sammy. And I know we appreciate you sharing all that, Kiki, too. Sammy and I, at some point, I think we'll do an episode on changing coaches and all that, because it's something I think you learn as an athlete, right? As you're growing and figuring yourself out. And like you said, developing that thick skin that you definitely don't have when you first start, most of us.
Yeah.
So this year, Kiki, you really, almost all of your shows, you were, first call out or top 5, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you've had a season like this as a pro, correct?
No, this was definitely the season that, I got back into, my very first show, the Atlanta Pro, was back in the top 10, and I've been there before, and I was happy with that. I was like, I'm back. I'm not in the sea of 16s. Like I got the top 10 placing, and then we improved every single show. The Patriots Challenge Pro, which was my second show, I ended up I wasn't in the initial first call out, but I ended up getting 6th place. So when they took off like the top 3, they brought me in. And then I think the judges are like, oh shit. So I was super happy with that. And then I did 4 shows back to back to back to back.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I was looking at the history from this year because it's like we see it through Instagram, but obviously, like, you can miss people's posts and stuff. So I was like, oh, dang, she did even more shows than I realized. You mentioned that you improved show to show. What were some of the things that you did, or what was some of the feedback you were getting, Kiki, between your shows that you executed on to improve your placings and improve as an athlete?
Yeah, so the consistent feedback this year is upper glutes. So we knew we need that long term, and that's what we're working on right now, like in my, improvement season. But a lot of it was just like different posing things. We ended up switching my front side. I'm 5'3", and I have a very like short blocky torso, from all the years of cheering and things like that. I'm just like short and stout. So a lot of it was, making sure my bikini top, where we were placing the connectors, just tiny little posing tweaks to make sure that we were, making my torso look longer than what it actually is. And honestly, that was it. Once do 1 or 2 shows, your metabolism just starts working a little bit better. You get that little bit of a boost. So after the Patriots Challenge Pro, we had about 3 weeks until Nashville. So we were able to, take, 10 days to just feed and train really hard and add fullness back to the physique and just work on refining like all those little details I was talking about, like the suit, the posing. And it once we got to like the Nashville show, it was so easy. I didn't feel like I was prepping at all. It was wild. We would just
Mhm.
like go about the day and the week, and we would just happen to step on stage on Saturday, which was, just it's such a weird feeling because I think we've had some, I don't want to say like PTSD, but it's your experiences from other shows and other peak weeks where you're, maybe doing all these like drastic changes. We would literally just coast into shows. Maybe we would do like a high day on my glute days, and then that's about it. Then we would just step on
Mhm.
stage on Saturday.
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
feel like your mindset stepping on stage was different, like posting into the shows as opposed to like prepping into the shows? Like, do you feel like that was like that had an effect mentally in a good way, obviously, that came out on stage in your presence?
Yeah, I mean, everything was just so calm. I didn't have that like anxiousness feeling of being in a peak week and doing all these things. It was just like, it just became like a normal life for, stepping on stage. Obviously, the more times you step on stage, you're going to get more comfortable. And we just kind of got in such a good rhythm and of like what my plan was, that we didn't have to manipulate anything. So it was just so less stressful. So I was able to just kind of like have fun. It's like, all right, where are we going this weekend?
Mhm. Love that. Yeah, it's really amazing when you get to that point where I don't know if you were maybe like reversing, like at some point during the season this year, you maybe after Patriots or before that, it's like you're starting a reverse where the food gets to come back up, cardio gets to come down, and it's like, okay, I'm just chilling. That's very, that's the ideal scenario. I think a lot of new competitors don't realize that, or you and I have had similar experiences, I think, when we were just starting out, Kiki. So, those shows where we were eating less than 1,000 calories to get ready for and all that, some of it may have been just the coaching methodology. Some of it may have been like you don't have the muscle mass. And as you grow and as you build more tissue, number one, you actually, and I think you maybe don't understand it until you've lived it, but it's like you don't actually have to get as lean the more muscle
Mhm.
you have, because it just pokes through your skin more.
Yep.
And when you are more muscular, your metabolic rate is a lot higher. So instead of having to eat, the mouse portions, you can eat a lot more food even when you're dieting. So it's a testament to your consistency, most likely in your off season and in your prep. and your consistency over years to build your physique to the point where you can basically just like chill, adjust your water as needed and throw on your bikini and get on stage.
Yeah, it's definitely like, I think the only like anxiety that I had through that is because I never kind of like experienced that.
You're
It
like, it's
was
too
new.
calm.
Yes. I was like, what's like, I think Ben's like, dude, just calm down. You're just stepping on stage on Saturday. We don't need to do anything crazy. Just follow your standard diet and, okay, we're going to do a high day this day. And all right, now just see how you look. Like if we needed to do your low day again. But honestly, it was just, we were eating food and just kind of, being a, bikini athlete.
Mhm. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think that's super important too. Like, I think we kind of touched on the fact that, like, once you're at a certain point, that's what it's like, right? It's like, how many years of having actual peak weeks did it take for you to then be able to just relax into a show, right? And I feel like a lot of new competitors, or I mean, there's really two sides to it, right? Everybody sees that this 800-calorie diet is what the quote unquote norm is, when first of all, it's absolutely the complete opposite. So I'm not
Yeah.
saying that, but it's like, sometimes you do have to stay on your lower calorie diet up until your show with the high cardio. But it's like, over time, when your body starts to get used to it and you have that muscle mass, you have, full muscle bellies, it doesn't always have to be like that. So it's like, it's this teeter, two sides of the pendulum, where it's like, you have to explain to competitors, like, it could be this way or it could be this way, but be prepared for either one, and you're not owed either of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great point, Sammy. And I think one thing I'd want to add to that is, especially for brand new competitors, there is a point where we can be too lean as an amateur, as a pro. And so when we're brand new, and typically when we are new competitors, we're a little under muscled. For myself, I was like way under muscled. So everything you said earlier, Kiki, completely relate. So at that point, you probably will have to go lower with your calories. However, a coach is also, when somebody's brand new and less, has less muscle mass, they're also trying to balance, like, what's the best look. Like, somebody with very little muscle mass is probably actually not going to look the best completely shredded, because at that point they might just look like a skeleton, like me at my first show, on stage at 6 feet tall, like less than 130 pounds, like, for sure. So there's a balance between like fullness, the leanness and all that. And until you hit that point where you're like lean enough, you don't get to really reverse diet. But once you hit that point, whether you are an NPC athlete or a pro, and we don't want striations, right? We don't want deep separation in our muscles. That's what the judges are very clear about. But once you hit that point where you're there and you're lean, okay, cool, you can start reverse dieting. It's hard to do, especially as an amateur. I think as a pro, when we've got more muscle, it's a lot easier to do. And Kiki, it sounds like you're insanely consistent, so that makes it really easy to have great results. It's like, it's not some secret, like bodybuilding, fitness, it's not some big secret. It's like, okay, work out with intensity, train in a way that is going to help you reach your goals, and eat the right foods, and just be consistent. It's truly that simple.
Yeah, I always say consistency is like a superpower. And that's my superpower, is just being consistent. I don't have the best genetics. But what I can do is I can be consistent. I can control what I'm doing and how I'm operating to, hopefully get to that next level.
Love that. What were some of your favorite looks or favorite shows that you did this year, Kiki?
Gosh, I liked all of my looks, honestly. We didn't I feel like we just continued to improve each show. I think probably my favorite had to have been like the Mexico Grand Battle show. That's where I got third place, which is my highest placing on the pro stage. That show was different because it was on a Sunday, and pre-judging and finals were back to back, and it started at like 6 p.m. So that was probably the weirdest one, because we we're not used to having like that many meals before, stepping on stage. And that was probably my favorite show because last year when I was at the Wasatch Warrior, I was like 110 pounds. And I was in front of the head judge, Steve DeVore. And when I was getting my feedback from him, he was like, yo, this is like freaky Kiki status. Like, you're too shredded. I love that look, but it's just not bikini. So when we were looking at shows for this year, I had no idea what show I was doing this year. Ben was like, do not even ask. We're just going to prep. And when your body's ready, we'll pick a show. And then once we started going into a couple shows, we started looking at the Mexico show because, it's fun. It's, honestly super affordable to travel there. And Steve was going to be the head judge. And I was like, I am getting in front of Steve again as this big girl. And when we got feedback from that show, he was like, yep, we're not freaky Kiki anymore. Like, this is such an improved look from last year. And that was just like so good to hear because, as competitors, I think we can sometimes get caught like in that number game. Like last year, I was 111 pounds. I knew I didn't need, like, I knew I shouldn't have been that lean. But it was also kind of scary going into these shows this year, being in the 120s. And I was like, I don't know, Ben, I think I'm too thick. And he was like, absolutely not. And, all the judges this year have, complimented on how full and, big I looked and not like it was a good bikini balance. And that was it was very rewarding.
That's amazing.
How would you say competing? I know that like, I mean, Mexico's like, super close to us, but like internationally, like to have that experience, what was that like in terms of like the travel, the food, and all that kind of stuff? Even though it was like somewhat local, but it's still considered, international.
Yeah. So that show, it was me and Daniela both competed. So we were both under Ben. And so it was in Monterrey, Mexico, which isn't a tourist destination by any means. So it was very industrial. Everyone spoke Spanish. No, like there wasn't like people who spoke English. Of course, people at the show did, and like the promoters and things. But in terms of, the people in the city getting around, Spanish. Thank goodness Daniela speaks, that's her first language is Spanish. Because if it was me and Ben, I don't know if we would have survived, to be completely honest. And, when you're going to any shows, really, looking up ahead of time what grocery stores are there. There is a Walmart. So, we knew we could get certain things. Me and Daniela both ended up bringing our, food in. Mine was like all frozen. It thankfully didn't thaw out during the flight. So I didn't get any of my food taken away, through customs. Daniela got all of her food taken away.
Oh, geez.
But thankfully there's grocery stores. So we were staying in an Airbnb and she just had to pick up, her protein and stuff. So a lot of it is dependent, like with any travel for shows, it's just being prepared and, knowing that, you don't have to be so neurotic about it because I have some competitors who are traveling. I'm like, dude, it's calm down. Like if you forget something, there's going to be a store that you can buy stuff from. But
Yeah.
it was definitely an interesting experience, kind of having no English speaking there. It was funny. Our post show meal, we went to this steakhouse and they gave me and Ben like English speaking menus. And still I didn't even we couldn't like decipher it because it was so broken English. So God bless Daniela for speaking the language. I definitely want to do more international shows in the future, just because it's fun and good experiences, and you get to like. I think that's the cool part about being a pro is there's shows all throughout the world that you can pick a destination that you've always wanted to go to, and just kind of like go and compete and then like enjoy the city too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, to your point, if you're in a tourist destination, Europe or Asia or wherever, it's can make it a little easier because you'll have more people that probably speak English.
Yeah.
So, but if you have a translator, that works. Like I studied abroad in Beijing, but luckily I had classmates that spoke Mandarin and English. Otherwise, it would have been a completely different experience.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So before we let you go today, Kiki, what I always like to ask this question of other pros: what advice would you give to competitors, say, that look up to you, whether they're a pro themselves, an amateur competitor just starting? Like, if you could give advice to your younger self, like what advice or what best advice would you give to those that look up to you?
Yeah, my favorite thing that I have on my website is it's a beautiful day to go after your dreams. So, it's if you have these goals of stepping on stage for the first time, or, wanting to go pro, like, no matter what's happening around you in your environment, or if you're having a bad day, you can still make it a great day to go after your dreams, and realize that, if you're feeling down, you can, or having a rough day during prep, like, you're going to have better days ahead of you, and just have that relentless pursuit of, proving to yourself that you can do this. Because if you would have looked at me in 2017, everyone probably would have been like, this girl is never going to go pro, because I was so small. I was like a twig, and I just worked. I was consistent, and I, studied the sport, and just literally just immersed myself in this to, make my dreams come true. And, having a good environment of people around you, I think, is also crucial. You don't want people that, yeah, family members may not understand it, but they're going to be there to support you, and, connect with other competitors. I always try to get my athletes to connect with one another, or just other people in the industry, to, just immerse themselves in the sport, and learn, how to do certain things, and also just have fun with the process, because, we're not guaranteed a pro card after X number of shows, or, X number of time. So enjoy that time. I spent 4 years on the amateur level, and sometimes I wish I had more time there, because once you get into the pro levels, it's just like everyone is
Yeah,
good.
the level of
Yeah.
competition it's a big step up. Kind of like
Yeah.
nationals can be that big step up. It's a big jump. Even if you won the overall at your national show, like, it's a big jump up for most of
Yeah.
us.
And you
So,
spend so much time and hard work during your preps and an improvement season, that, when it comes time to show day, just as that if you're prepared, just relax and have fun. Talk to people backstage, and really make the experience, for, like, that's the time where you can, like, meet people, and, really just, like, feel like a competitor, because sometimes we can feel so isolated during prep. Like, go to the shows, and, like, talk to the promoters, talk to the vendors, and talk to different coaches, and different, you never know who you're going to meet. And like I said, like, my very first show, I had Lacey there to, she was making sure I had the right lipstick on, and we're best friends. I was at her wedding. Like, she came to one of Beckon's shows this year, when Beckon turned pro. So it was so cool to have, just have these people around us.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always say too, those are the people who know exactly what you just went through,
Yeah.
because they just went through it too. So that's like, I always say that.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, cool. So where can people find you if they want to follow you or hit you up for coaching or posing or anything like that?
Yeah, so I'm most active on Instagram. I did get my old like my original Instagram, deactivated, because I don't, for whatever
So
reason, like
cute.
right before Junior USA's this year. So I have a new Instagram. It's at Keekers Laugh IFBB Pro. I'm the most active on there, just about, my competition journey and, coaching, just living the daily life. I also have a YouTube channel that, I have tons of different, you know, tutorials and, day in the life, full day of eating, show recaps. And so I think you just have to type in like Kiki
Okay.
IFBB Pro and you'll
Yeah,
be
we'll
able to
include it. We'll include it in the episode
find it.
info so people can find you.
And then I also do a podcast with my other best friend, Beckon. We kind of it's not solely just competing. It's called Champagne Gains. So we talk about training, nutrition, competition, just me and her kind of shooting the shit sometimes. So that's Champagne Gains, and you can find that on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And then for my coaching, my business, I do competition coaching, lifestyle coaching, and posing coaching as well. And my website is coachkikilfg.com.
Love that. Love that. So we'll include that all for so everyone can get in touch with you. This has been awesome, Kiki. It's great to see your face, chat with you, catch up a little bit since Nashville. So I'm hoping, actually, are you going to go to Olympia? Will you be there?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So I'll see you next week then.
I'm
I'll
so
be there.
sad.
Yeah, Sammy, just ditch your responsibilities and come to Olympia.
Yeah.
Just ditch my child.
Yeah. I'm
Such a
excited
good
for the
plan.
Olympics. It's kind of like a big reunion for everyone.
Mhm. Cool. So yeah, I'll get there. I get there on Wednesday, so I'll reach out to you and hopefully maybe we can get a workout or walk the expo or do something fun.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you again for joining us. And to the listeners, thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. And lastly, don't forget to share with a friend so the podcast can grow. And we will catch you guys in the next episode.